Biases. We all have them, whether they're good or bad. It's just a part of the human experience. But when it comes towards business to business selling, do we have biases on who we choose to buy from? On today's episode, my friend Kwame Christian and I are going to tackle that subject, and hopefully you can learn a thing or two that can help you or your team in your professional selling career. Hey, everyone. Welcome to another great episode of the Sales Evangelist Podcast here on TSE TV on YouTube. I am your host, Donald Kelly, the Sales Evangelist, and I'm so excited for another great episode. I'm so excited to be here with you today. And on this episode, we're going to talk to Kwame Christian, a friend of mine. And Kwame is an attorney, and he's also the founder and lead trainer at the American Negotiation Institute. And Kwame is running this organization, and he's an attorney, and he negotiates a lot with individuals, and a best-selling author. So I figured this topic would be something that Kwame could help me out on. And in this discussion, you're going to hear us break down and talk about what are some of those biases that people have, and how do we overcome some of those biases, and to be able to have a productive society. You're going to love it. We'll break it down, have a good time, and hopefully you can walk away with a thing or two that can help you and your team improve your selling career. Kwame, welcome back to the show, brother. It's a pleasure having you here, man.
It is great to be here, my friend.
And, I bragged about you a little bit there in the beginning. And then this is why I think it's so important to have you, because you come with the attorney background, you come with the business background, and you understand how to negotiate or how to mediate. And especially with this topic, what we're going to dive straight into is, do Americans have bias with who they buy from? And I figured you'd be the best person to do that, to chat with. So reason with me, Kwame, help me. As a sales professional, I'm sitting here trying to figure this out. People have bias for who they buy from? Yay, nay? Why not? Yes?
I would
If so,
say yes, 100%. And here's the thing too. So the reason why I'm so fascinated about negotiation and persuasion and those type of things is because my background is in psychology. My undergrad degree is in psych. And so that really informs a lot of the way that I navigate my career as a lawyer and negotiate in these really high stakes situations. And so I've recently started doing some more bias trainings, really helping companies to understand that, because it's an important element of understanding human on a deep fundamental level. And the reality is this: everybody has biases. Everybody has biases. Biases are the byproduct of a naturally functioning brain. That's the reality. And the only way that you can get rid of your biases is if you don't have a normally functioning brain. so,
we're normal folks.
Yeah, let's just get that out of the way here. Bias doesn't make you bad, right? It's just natural. But if you are aware of those biases, then you don't do anything about it, then that's where it becomes a little bit problematic. So we need to raise awareness so people can make better decisions. So to your fundamental question, do Americans have biases with the way that they buy? The answer is 100% yes. And so we have to determine what those biases are, number one, and then create strategies to try to work around them, number two.
So when it goes to like with whom you buy from, because I go back to your psychology study there was one of my friends pointed out, there was a study that was done when, folks saw, they did a picture of a black person, then all of a sudden, they had neural, I don't know if you've ever seen that study or studied it or learned about it, but all of a sudden the person's heightened level of fear started to rise. And then when it was someone Caucasian, not black, it was a little bit lower. So this perception was people sometimes fear black people. And it's like, why is that? So when it comes towards race, is there a difference with that when it sales? Are people willing to buy from someone who looks like them? Is that what the bias is saying? Or is it more of like, are people fearful of black folks and sometimes may not think that they are capable of wanting to buy from them?
Yeah. And so it's a blend of things, because we have to remember biases cut both ways. So you have positive biases and negative biases. So think about the classic Dale Carnegie. It's know, like, and trust, right? Yeah. And so you are more likely to know, like, and trust people who are like you, right? You're also more likely to know, like, and trust people who are represented very frequently in the media. So let's
Mm.
give an example. Let's turn it on me for an example. So I'm a Caribbean American, just like you, but I grew up in Tiffin, Ohio, Midwest, really small town, not much diversity at all, and we sounded funny, which made it even harder, right? And so I grew up with this all white community, and I never really had, other than family, very many interactions with black people until I went to college. And so I remember distinctly one time at law school walking home from the library late at night, and there was a group of young black men walking towards me, and I felt my heart rate start to race. Right,
Mm.
I started to get that fear response, and I said, wow, it's in me too. And I remember earlier when it was me and a friend who was also black walking at late at night, and there was a white couple walking towards us. When they looked up and saw us, they just sprinted across to the other side of the street, right?
No.
And so the reality is we're exposed to the same media. And so it's
Uh,
not just Caucasians who would tend to favor fellow white people, right? What you will also find is a lot of times there are going to be black people who would favor white people too, because they've been exposed to the same media representations over and over and over again. And so, yes, it is a pattern, and there's study after study demonstrating just how significant and pervasive this bias is, and it will permeate all aspects of our lifestyle and careers.
I want you to give me two ways that we can change it. One, from the perspective of me being a sales professional, how can I adjust that, and what can I do? And then two, from Donald or from somebody listening to this who may be white and maybe a buyer or just anyone, how do we change it? So from the sales perspective, and then the seller's perspective, and then also from the buyer standpoint.
Okay, so both groups will start off with the same thing. It has to be self-awareness. That's number one, because you can't do anything about an obstacle unless you recognize where that obstacle exists.
So when you
And
say
so,
self-awareness, give me an example what that means. Me saying,
so
well, Donald, change your mind, or this you think this
yeah,
way.
so when it comes to you as the black salesperson, you need to be aware of the biases that are working against you. How is it working against you in this situation? Now, for you, let's say if you are the buyer, you are a white buyer, then you have to recognize, hey, this bias can impact my decisions. And so I need to think a little bit more thoroughly about why I feel a preference toward one person versus another. Is it based on something legitimate or in facts, or is it just based on the reality that I have a bias that makes me feel more comfortable with this person over that person? And so recognizing that human tendency within ourselves can help you to overcome that bias, not naturally or quickly, but through deeper levels of thinking. You can say, aha, the thing that tipped the scale for me wasn't anything legitimate. It was my gut feeling. The gut feeling is what the bias really is. And so for black salespeople, here's the thing. Remember, earlier I said that bias cuts both ways. There's positive and negative. And so what we have to do is we have to try to tip the scales in our favor in terms of the positive biases. For instance, trust. Trust is a positive bias. So, for example, if I hold a face up that you're familiar with and I say, do you trust this person? It's going to be instantaneous. Yes or no. I trust that person. I didn't think about it. I felt it. Right.
Hmm.
And so for the black salespeople, what we have to do is we need to be more mindful about creating unique opportunities to create positive touch points with the people that we want to work with. I need to spend a little bit more time building rapport, making the people feel comfortable, those type of things. So, for example, there's no study to demonstrate this, but understanding the studies of trust and how it could correlate here, we understand it's the same psychological mechanisms. So, for example, if you're a white salesman, or salesperson, what you could do is, yeah, at the beginning of the call, what I'm going to say is, out of this 30 minutes, I'm going to allocate 3 minutes to pleasantries, and then I'm going to move into business. Now, for me, what I say is like I need to allocate 5 to 7 minutes to pleasantries to let you know, hey, it is okay, right? I know what I'm talking about. We are very similar in many different ways. Okay, then let's transition. And so I spend a lot more time up front because there are hidden negotiations that are happening, right? So I don't need. It's not just about the substance. It's not just about the data. For me, it's also about your comfort. And so I'm going to allocate a little bit more effort at the beginning of the effort and time at the beginning of the interaction, making sure that the person feels comfortable with who I am as a person and what I can bring to the table before transitioning into the substantive part of the dialogue.
Some people will say that's not my job. That's their job to get over that themselves. What would you say
It
to that?
is. Here's the thing, they're both right, right? So it is their job to overcome their own biases, right? But
Yeah.
then it is also your job to put yourself in the best position for success. You know, that's the
Oh,
thing. And so
yeah.
the reason I approach it this way is because I want to give people an understanding of the psychology that exists and what
Mm.
strategies you can implement to overcome these biases in order to put yourself in the best position for success. That's a legitimate outcome. Now, on the other side, there are a lot of people who say, Kwame, I understand this. Kwame, this makes sense. And Kwame, I can recognize how the strategy works. I don't feel comfortable doing this because it doesn't feel fair to me. If that's the calculus that you come to, then that's the conclusion you need to come to as well. You always
Mm.
want to look back on the things that you do and not feel like you regret it. For me, I just did Strengths Finder last week, and
Yeah.
competition was number one. And so for me, I want to win. I want to win. I want my company to do well. I want my team to do well. I want my family to do well. And so I'm willing to sacrifice a little bit of discomfort in that moment for that 5 to 7 minute period in order to put myself in the best position for success. That's my calculation.
Mm.
And then there are a lot of other people who very legitimately think it through very thoroughly, and emotionally it doesn't sit right with them. They know if they look back on their behavior today and they say, yeah, I tried to be a little bit nicer because I feel like they have a bias against me, I wouldn't feel comfortable with that, so I'm not going to do it. And that's a completely legitimate decision. I think ultimately it comes down to you doing what makes you feel comfortable with a fully informed perspective before you make that decision.
And I love what you shared there, Kwame. I think it comes back to that well, ultimately what I want, and if and what I in because if you feel that way with someone or someone feels that way about you, then it may not be that you're going to do is that kind of a relationship that you want to continue to go forward. Maybe it's not the type of client you want to work with. So you do have choices there. But
Yeah.
understanding, especially the industry that you're in, if your industry is predominantly, white, then obviously you're to be put yourself in a situation to succeed as much as possible. Then you're going to do what you need to do to succeed. It's not that you're bending to anyone. It's because you're doing what you need to do so you can take care of your family and create that generational wealth you're trying to accomplish.
Exactly. And here's the thing too. There's a difference between having an implicit bias, which everybody has, right? And being like explicitly bigoted. So I am not working with somebody who is explicitly bigoted, who is disrespectful, who crosses multiple lines. No, no,
Yeah,
no, no. I am not working with that because you have to weigh the benefit to you. So money has value, but emotional health has value as well. I'm not
yeah,
going to sacrifice that for me. Now, what I've recognized again is that everybody has biases. I make the person feel comfortable. After I go break that initial barrier, I genuinely feel like I don't have those types of problems,
mm,
right? Once the person breaks through and they recognize Kwame's legit, Kwame's not a threat, Kwame's intelligent. Once they recognize that, oh, really easy, really easy. It's just the beginning that really is challenging. And let me say this too, region matters because I'm in Columbus, Ohio. The Midwest is a very nice part of the world, right? In terms of the places in America, people who come from the coast, people who come from the South, everything they say when I come to the Midwest,
yeah.
people are really, really nice. They notice that, and then when I give this same advice to people who might be in New York, they're like, "Hey, bias runs differently here."
Huh.
Right. you know and so I think again you have to make that calculation, but based on my personal experience and a lot of the people that I've worked with, this is a framework that's worked really well for them.
Kwame, one major tip you want somebody listening to this, or if they were to, they just got to, you know, walked into the house and they're finished up listening to our episode and they're trying to get a summary. How would you summarize all of this? Do Americans have bias? Give us a one summary takeaway.
Yes, Americans have biases. If you create the right strategies, you can overcome them and still be successful.
That's what I wanted to hear. Kwame Negotiation Institute, killing it. American Negotiation Institute. So, if folks want to get in touch with you, where do they go to connect with you and to learn more?
LinkedIn is the best way to connect with me. Also, check out the Negotiate Anything podcast, the #1 negotiation podcast in the world, only because we have guests like Donald Kelly coming on the show. And also, too, if you want to do a negotiation training, check out the website, AmericanNegotiationInstitute.com. And you might be wondering how, Kwame, how did you build a business that is so successful? It is because I had Donald Kelly as a friend, mentor, and a coach who helped me through my sales processes. So you're listening to the best show on earth for that.
Well, I appreciate the shout out, and you also have a book as well. I know that came out last year or year.
Yes. So the book is Finding Confidence in Conflict: How to Negotiate Anything and Live Your Best Life.
So y'all check out Kwame's book. We'll put a link back in the show notes, and also we'll put a link back to the Negotiation Institute and to Kwame as well. Kwame, thank you so much for coming on the show and setting it straight for us today. We appreciate it, man.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Anytime.
That was Kwame Christian. You can connect with him by going to LinkedIn. We also have his information down in the notes below. If you just go and click on it, it'll take you back to his LinkedIn profile. As well as you can learn about the American Negotiation Institute and some of the amazing things Kwame is doing, as well as this book. You saw that in the last little picture there, frame, when he put up that book. So go ahead and check the book out. We have some links to it as well. I just highly recommend him. He's an awesome individual, great friend to learn from, and just one of those individuals that you will get a chance to know and just instantaneously just love and adore. So I'm a big fan of Kwame, and I highly recommend you check out his podcast as well. And any seller needs to learn how to become an effective negotiator, and Kwame is your guide to help you with that. As always, I want you to check out our friends. You can check out our sponsors, the folks who are giving us some amazing free gifts. Yes, check out their stuff because we've negotiated with them for some free content and some free access to their tools so you can benefit from it. As always, I want you to succeed. I want you to find more of those ideal customers. I want you to know what to say when you reach out to them. I want you to close more deals. But most importantly, I want you to challenge yourself each and every single day to go out and do big things. Thanks so much for watching today. Hey, thanks so much for taking the time to watch this video today. If you enjoyed the content, I ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, that thumbs up at the bottom right-hand corner. Also, to make sure to subscribe if you haven't done so already. This way, we'll keep you up to date with all the latest sales strategies, latest tools, and things that are going to help you to not only find more prospects, but to close more deals. Thanks so much.